Hello, welcome to the Groomer's Cut this evening. Okay, you're going to have to bear with us once again because if you know me, I like changing stuff and I change a lot. So we have a new platform, and hopefully everybody watching on our new platform, you will all now be able to see all the questions and all the comments so that you will not be left out. So please join us. Let us know if you can. Anybody want to type a message on there?
Testing.
Testing.
Now,
So we can see.
do they have to like StreamYard, do they have to give permission for their name to be put on?
You probably do, just like we used to. Yep, back to the old school. Grant this, and we're starting over. So, sorry to throw.
I just want to call attention to the fact that my cat has decided to make an appearance on the show. That's
Mike likes to do that too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But this evening we are talking scissoring. So how this is going to go, I'm not sure which direction this is going to go or what way this is going to do, but we can start with, oh, there we go. We got Amber Cook up
Amber
there.
says hi, Kitty.
Hi, Kitty. So see, we can, hopefully everybody can see that. It's like so exciting. It's like
Yay.
Christmas.
And we can see their names, but they can't see ours. So that's something the technology
now
we
I
haven't
gotta
figured
work
out.
on that because I can see them over here, but
well, we should introduce ourselves then. I'm Jennifer Bishop Jenkins. Chrissy.
Hi, I'm Chrissy, and I just tried to add something into the chat. I'm Chrissy Neumeyer Smith, and I do the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast.
There we go.
There.
Mindy.
Hi, I'm Mindy Dinwiddie, and I am a speaker for Berkeley.
Where do you enter the comments? Tell me how you did that, Chrissy.
I went on my phone. So I'm on Facebook on my phone for the comments.
Oh.
I went low tech.
Low tech. Nice.
I went low tech.
And we got Chris, who's driving and joining us.
That is Chris Bear Anthony with a lot of background noise. Uh-oh, she just muted.
Oh, and no mic.
Uh-oh. Okay. Well, maybe when
Look
she
at that
gets
sunroof.
settled. I know, right.
Yeah, she has the panoramic sunroof.
I'm envious.
We'll get her jumped in here. There, but
can you hear me?
All right.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
There we go. Now we can. All right. So who wants to lead this? Do you want to start with, I think one of the questions I had asked is
on my phone, my name. Yeah, there we go.
There you go. There you go. So we might have to be a little creative while I learn this new platform. So, and I'll figure this whole thing out. But
I vote if Chris Bear Anthony is at a place where she can talk. Can you speak, Chris? Can we hear you? Chris, can you hear us? No.
No. Look.
Maybe not.
Okay. Well, is there somebody that would like to start with like the parts? We're going to talk about scissoring tonight, and we all brought some show and tell items. And is there somebody that would like to do the parts of the shear? I'd like to talk about holding and hand positions a little bit, but maybe Chrissy, Mindy, do you guys want to do the
anatomy of a shear?
The actual parts of the scissor first.
We lost
Chris Bear Anthony. Hopefully she will come back.
Well, Chrissy, do you want to do it or you?
I will leave the parts of the shear up to you because right now I'm like, ooh, gosh, I'm drawing a blank on parts of it.
I mean, I'm going to just say that I'm going to start with I'll start with some really basic stuff, and Mindy, you go for it. But one of the most, I don't know, sort of common sense, but it never really occurred to me until somebody talk me through it. Chris, are you still driving? Can you hear us? Can you see us?
I can hear you.
Oh, we can hear you.
Oh my God.
How wonderful.
What? Yes, I am still driving.
Okay. Well, when you're not driving, you can chime in here. But anyway, we were talking about starting with parts of the scissor. So one of the things that is that kind of surprised me when I first was learning is that one part of the scissor is the guide, and the other is actually cutting. So the part that you move with your thumb, that's the part that's actually cutting, and then this blade is the guide, correct?
Yep.
Yep.
And so those are the shanks.
Right. And then this part that is the at the joint, right, is another feature of the scissor that everybody should really think about, because you want the shear when you open it to not be in the center. Like if I have a cheap pair of desk scissors, okay, you can see that the joint is right in the middle of the scissor, and that in order to get a full length of cutting, you have to open it way wide. Whereas if your joint is a little lower down, a little bit of open at the bottom gives you a lot of open at the top. And that is a really nice feature to have, because you want to minimize the motion on your hands for the lifetime of your hands. So a little bit of motion, if the joint is a little further down, is a better thing for your hands. So that's another anatomical feature. The pinky tang, right? This is called the tang.
Yep.
Right? What other features, Chrissy, Mindy? What else do you think are
The
just
tips.
in terms of the physical? Yeah.
Tips, the shanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. The shank.
If it's a dial adjust knob, or if it's one of the old ones that's a screw.
Right.
Which is okay. Show the difference between that.
This is a dial adjust knob.
This is a regular old time screw,
which requires a little tool.
Yes, there's a tool required, and it's like a circle that has several different teeth on it that fit into those two grooves, and then you turn it. Now when you have a dial, though, a dial should have clicks. Okay, as you turn it, it should be a click, a spot.
Yep, it does.
Okay,
and it's like a notch.
Right. And now those will go out on shears. So if it's not clicking as you turn it, then you need to see your sharpener so that he can replace that. Okay.
And I'm often asked how tight to keep your scissors. And again, there is a test that I was taught, and you guys tell me if this works for you. But I was told that you want your shear to be loose enough that it doesn't shut all the way when you drop it, but that it shuts most of the way. That
Correct.
if it's too tight,
it should shut between,
like
somewhere between there,
and there,
and there.
So if it's too tight, then it's going to stay like that. Okay, and I just tightened it. But that would be really hard on your hand muscles. So, and if it's too loose,
well, it's not just hard on your hand muscles. You'll also have a tendency to over torque, which will make the shear cross over, and will create nicks and burrs.
And then if it's too loose, it'll slam shut. And that's not good either, and that'll fold hair. It won't cut it well. So you want it to be just tight enough that it would close to about there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's anywhere between like there to there. Yeah. It's like from down here to up here.
So that's a little too tight, so I'm just loosening it until I get my shear right back to where I had it.
And you
both
should,
too
when you're,
tight.
There. That's where it should be.
and throughout your
And-
grooming process, check during the day
Mhm.
and readjust.
Because it'll tighten and loosen as you use it.
Yep.
And both too tight or too loose can actually damage your shear. Because if you're putting too much pressure to make it cut, if it's too loose, that's going to grind your edges.
Right. And it's going to hurt your thumbs. And speaking as a
It's-
person who's been
yes.
forced into retirement from bad thumbs after 40 years of grooming, I'm and 7 surgeries on my hands in 15 years, including multiple thumb injection procedures. I can tell you that preserving your thumbs is really, really important. And you should take care of making sure you're doing all of this correctly with a good quality pair of shears that is the right size for your hands and that you are holding correctly. Can we talk now, my friends, about the actual hand position when you're holding the shear?
And which fingers belong in which holes.
Right.
We make sure everybody knows the very basic parts.
So,
Goodness. So silly.
if somebody, I will tell you what I was taught and how I was sort of starting with the 4 fingers that are on the one side. You got the pinky and the tang, the ring finger here, and then these 2 here. Some shears actually have the little places for you to put these 2 fingers. You don't want your fingers too far in your scissor. You want them more on the tips, because
Depending on what brand you're using.
depending
Or
on
what type, because
Yeah,
swivel
type,
shears are opposite length.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a swivel shear, your thumb, again, not all the way in. You don't want it all the way in. You just want the tip of it in like that. And you want to be right on the corner of your thumbnail, pushing on this bar right here. So it's at the forward part. If everybody can see my thumb, let me try to get this closer here. Thumb position at the forward part, pushing on that bar. Okay? Okay. Now show us on the swivels.
Mindy's
maybe-
got it.
And maybe talk about why the swivels are better
Okay,
for your
so
hands.
now the thing is okay, just like she said, now these do have the spot for your fingers. Okay, now with a swivel, because you were always taught that you use fingertips because that's how you control and you move them. With a swivel, you're actually putting them in your hand. You're able to put them on your thumb, if you can see how much thumb I have in there, because you no longer are using your thumb to control them. You're using your fingers to push and pull. It's a push-pull method with your fingers. So therefore, you're able to move them with your fingers more in the shear, which give you a couple benefits, because it gives you the benefit of number one, security, because they don't drop as easy, and they not kicked out of your hands as easy, and they are you're able to make all the adjustments. And Amber, I see your question about how do you flip them, and if you get a hold of us, we'll be more than happy to do a Zoom with you and show you all the ins and outs of doing that. But
can I say what? Can I actually show on my straight shears why it's so good to get the swivel thumb that I didn't? So you see how my thumb and fingers are closer together. In order to get my thumb in there, I have to pull my thumb way down.
correct.
From up here to down here. And that means that my entire grooming career, let me see if I can turn my hand.
It puts your hand in a normal hand position.
This is not a normal, down here is not normal. What you want is like if you're shaking somebody's hand, where's your thumb? It's up here. Yeah.
If you can see.
So that has actually hurt my thumbs to be down that low all of these years. Yeah.
You can see more where my thumb is, like, it's straight with the shear. So it's in a more natural position. So, and then the other thing about having swivels is you, Miss Jennifer, did your top lines like this. I do mine like this.
Which is a lot
I'm not
easier on your shoulders and elbows too, right? Yeah.
exactly. And then you probably did your legs like this, where I do mine like this.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
it's about positioning. It's about being able to keep your wrist straight, which is going to keep that carpal tunnel from coming.
And by the way, I have bought my Evolution shears and I use them, but I'm showing this on a straight shear just so people would know.
Oh yeah, I have. You know,
yeah.
I had to dig into the dinosaurs a little bit, but you know, I do have the old fashioned,
the old version. Yeah.
Right.
But they, like I
So-
said, they're my dinosaurs.
When I first started trying double swivels, the thing that I found was binding me up, and I don't know if this applies to what Amber is noticing. The thing that was binding me up is that this finger kept wanting to be here, but with your double swivels, you need to have it much further in.
Yes.
So that was binding me up. And I was like, why aren't these doing what I want them to do? Oh, like the very natural pose to put your fingers in there. And that was one of the big mistakes I was making. Totally changed how I use it.
It's what's natural and comfortable versus what our muscle memory has told us we have to do to hold scissors.
Yes.
When you put it in your hand, it's comfortable and it's natural, but because years of muscle memory say, oh my God, that's too far in, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's what takes a little getting used to.
So for people like me that learned on not swivel scissors, it was a bit of an adjustment, but it has been a godsend in terms of late in life with my hand problems to finally have an investment in a good pair of Evolution shears. But
okay, one thing I want to touch on is that she said that this is the way you should hold your regular shears, right? But what we see in the industry is that a lot of people, because this is so uncomfortable on your thumb, they have adjusted to this. Okay, now that is all because this is more comfortable and puts your thumb in a more neutral position than what this does.
Yeah.
So that's why when you see people doing this, that's typically why, because it puts it in a more neutral position and a more comfortable position than the way that you're supposed to hold them.
Okay.
Yeah. And it does. It takes a while to get used to and retraining your hand and your fingers to go into them. We're not Mindy, carpal tunnel is such a huge part of our industry, and not just our industry, everybody that's hairdressers. And if you've ever gone to your normal hairdresser and looked at how they hold their shears, they do this also.
Yep.
And they're also switching to double swivels.
Yeah. And I had carpal tunnel before I ever started grooming. And I had the surgery prior to start grooming. And 2 years in, I already knew what it felt like and what was going to happen. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. I can't do this, And then that's when I found the, Abby and Mo with Evolutions. And I was able to continue grooming, and I'm at it. This is my 13th year, and that's all due to the double swivels and being able to keep that wrist straight. Now, if it's okay, I'm going to talk a minute on what's different about Evolution double swivels compared to other double swivels and why there's a difference between them. Now, Evolutions, as you can see, we
There you go. Yep.
we have 3 holes that you can't, so we're able to put that thumb in the most neutral position. And that's what makes Evolution, what makes us different from any other double swivel, because we're the only one that can do this.
Chrissy, can you show it up close on yours? Because your room's a little bit brighter.
So if you look from the top,
open up.
Open them a little.
There you go.
Can you guys see that better?
Pull it
So there's
closer.
right now it's set to the middle.
You're in the middle. So that's the most
and it could go back one or it could go forward one.
Yep.
And I've actually played around a little bit with different ones, so it's not like it's too terribly difficult to go ahead and adjust them yourself and give it a try. I like the balance better in the middle, but that's fitting to your hand. All of our hands are different. I got blocky hands, big guy hands.
I have small.
They're sturdy. They're sturdy. Don't talk about my friends that way.
I don't have any problem with having big blocky guy hands.
You know, I know, Mindy, you and Chris both do a lot of demos and at the expos and at the booth and on the trade show floor too sometimes. Maybe, and I know, Mindy, we'll have to go back to this for Dallas, but maybe, I know Amber's saying she's having some problems, and maybe we can do a mini class at the booth for anyone who's there that just wants a freshener or just who actually wants a time to go and say, okay, now do this, but an actual, because it's hard when you're working the booth and trying to do demos. It's different than having that mini class time to be able to say, hey, look, we're going to give you half-hour free scissor lesson.
Right.
And remember that not everybody watching this is going to have a pair of swivel shears. In fact, most of the groomers watching us are probably not having. Yeah.
Right.
So in which case we're going to talk about regular style too as well.
Yes.
But if I can add one thing, before I got my first pair of swivels, before I met any of you lovely ladies, I went online and decided to just see what I could find and try out some really cheapies. And I actually kind of like the $30 version that I found on Facebook.
Oh yeah, you showed me those.
Right? They're a double swivel. They aren't good quality. They are not Evolution shears, but it was enough for me to say, I want a pair of those Evolution shears.
Okay. Yes, they're not double.
They are.
Let's talk about the difference between double and
actually
single.
double.
That one is double.
This one is double.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is your single.
This one is too. And
Because
this was another
you'd be surprised how many people are confused on what a double swivel actually is. They think the finger swivels and the thumb swivels, and that's not the case. Okay, it's still just the thumb that swivels, not both. Now, on a single swivel, you are still kind of limited. Okay,
the Evolutions go this way.
It does, however, protect your thumb.
It goes this way.
Yes, they are.
So that's the Evolutions, the nice ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're better than non-swivels, the single swivel, and there are people who prefer the single swivel. The main difference.
Hey, Chris, Bear Anthony, you're making a lot of background noise. Would you mind muting when you're not talking? Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
And then the double swivel, you have a lot broader range of motion. Okay, because your thumb is moving all around. Now,
versus your wrist.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Now, the thing that we tell everybody is they get confused because they want to like bend their thumb when they're trying to do it and everything.
Mhm.
One of the tricks on swiveling, keep your thumb straight.
Mhm.
The thumb is just along for the ride. So you want to keep that thumb straight as you're trying to swivel.
It is a
Yeah.
whole different style for people that have learned on a standard pair of shears. They're probably going to have to practice with it quite a bit, and so I'd like to keep it moving, talking about general scissoring issues.
Sure.
One of the things that I just posted, and I searched for what was a good website, and I couldn't really find anything, but I did put in there a link to a page of this is the first thing I could find. I'm not promoting anybody in particular, but there was on that page a diagram, if you scroll about halfway down, that shows you the three different edges of shears. So could we talk about that for a second? The difference right here on the edge, what kind of an edge it has. And there are three: beveled, convex,
able to
and
pull it up.
Great.
Huh?
Great. If you can show that actual
Give
diagram.
me 2 seconds and
and many websites that carry shears have this diagram, and including for the beautician world. But the three basic edges are beveled edge, which is the sort of the strongest, most blunt cut, but it's not a super sharp edge.
They're closer to our craft scissors.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
I actually always keep a beveled edge pair of shears for just like cutting through a mat, or something that I don't mind, cutting through something that might dull the scissor. I always keep a pair of beveled edge shears. There you go. That's one of the.
So this has the two that we use most in our industry, which would be the beveled and the convex.
Actually, I would say a lot of my shears are semi-convex. So to me, a convex edge is so sharp that I'm very careful to only use it on finished work, and maybe not necessarily on any kind of dog that's a problem behavior. I don't want to have any accidents. So I use semi-convex mostly in my work.
That's fine, because I've never used a semi-convex. I've always had bevel.
Yeah, you have. Your bevels on Evolutions are semi-convex.
Okay.
Yep. We call them bevels, but they are semi-convex.
Oh, okay. Good.
So just so folks know.
So can we just point out, and I don't know if I can't see anymore, but the difference being if my X is in the right
beveled
place,
edge, the beveled edge is a steeper, it's a more blunt cut, and it's not as sharp, and it would be good for cutting through mats and thicker hair maybe. But for beautiful, smooth, scissored finish work, you would want that convex or that semi-convex edge.
Which is almost like an airplane wing.
Yeah, very pointed.
Yeah.
Comes to a point.
I'm actually looking over here to see if I have any bevels in here. I don't think I do.
Oh, there she is. Chris is out of her car.
I'm home.
Yay!
I'm actually home. Okay, so the difference between a bevel and a semi-convex and a convex is about something that's not even on the edge of the shear.
It's on the inside.
It's on the inside. Well, it's kind of inside. It's on the flat part. It's on the blade. And that's called a hollow grind. And you have kind of a rectangle square situation going on, because on a true bevel, this will be super flat, just absolutely ground flat. When it's a hollow grind, and you can kind of see on this shear, I have a diagram in my shear class, but I don't have a flat ground shear with me. You see how it's almost not quite hollowed out, just a little bit in that edge.
Here's a cheap pair of desk scissors.
Okay, there you go.
Scissors. My cheapy desk.
You see how that's the cheapy scissors? It's flat, and this you have the little hollow ground. That turns a bevel into a semi-convex, and it helps give it a nicer finish.
And you can actually see the edge. See how thick the edge is on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a cheap pair of office scissors. Okay. Beveled.
So going through all of these, and I know people are going, okay, you guys have been talking about shears for a half hour now. Tell me how to scissor better. Let's get to the grooming part of these shears. Now that you've mentioned, unless you have anything else you want to touch on those.
In terms of the mechanics of it. I mean, do you agree? I actually just would say overall in terms of the choices that you do want to keep, I think, some less expensive beveled edge shears around, because there are times when you're going to want to cut something maybe pre-scissor a dog prior to the bath, or it's really thick matted Bernedoodle and you're trying to take some of the mats off before the bath.
Yep.
You know, that kind of stuff.
Or
I have a pair of shears
even
that I
if it's
keep next to the tub.
Yep.
I don't mind getting
even if
them
it's a
gooey.
really thick coat, because sometimes, like, it's a finished dog, you've done your snap-on comb, you're doing the leg, but you want to take off a lot of hair, or it's thick, your convex edge isn't going to do that as well because it's not designed to do that as well. So you might want your beveled edge for that, to just get some hair off.
Like some of those big thick doodle coats, some of the really thick cocker coats. Like if you actually have a long cocker coat and you're trying to bevel feet on a cocker, you're probably going to need something just a little bit heavier duty.
I actually have a little white dog that almost looks like a Maltese mix, but he has weirdly thick hair.
He's pretending to be a con.
Not even, I don't know what he's pretending to be. He's got issues. But he does better with trying to get anything through his legs with bevels.
So yeah, I think it's a good idea for everybody to have a less expensive beveled edge shear for just the, sort of hack work that you need to do. And then a beautiful, nice pair of, of convex or semi-convex edge to do your finish work with. Now, actual scissoring, how do you all, I'll tell you how I start my people learning to scissor, is that I send them home. I won't even, I'm training them on clippering and other things and toenails and sanitaries and stuff like that. But I send them home, and for a month, they have to do an exercise. They have to exercise moving just the thumb, holding first the shear flat in their hands, and then just doing this. And I make them do it for 10 minutes a day, every day, for a month before I even let them pick up a pair of shears. Because they have to, when you first pick up a scissor, your hand wants to use to do both. Like when I've been using cheap school shears all my life, my hands, both sides, fingers and thumbs, are moving. But when you're grooming, you want to hold the hand side still and just move the thumb, unless you're doing your swivel shears, right?
Well, and if you're not using double swivels, don't hold them out like straight unless your elbow's out.
Even when
you gotta want to be like, yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, nice glass, Chris.
Oh, well, thank you. I wonder where I got that, Sarah.
I don't know.
Where's mine?
Even when you're using swivel shears, when you're doing the actual scissoring, it's just your thumb. You're using your fingers. Where's the camera? You're using your fingers to position the blade, but to do the actual scissoring, just your thumb, just like your other standard non-swivel shears.
I assume that most people that are relatively new to grooming are going to be training on a more standard shear and not necessarily a swivel. Although if they can learn on swivel from the very beginning, obviously that's better for them, ergonomically. Yep. I mean, I literally have had X-rays recently on my thumbs where the X-ray showed that there was no more joint there. It's just mush. And that's why I'm retiring.
That is,
That's
And when
bad.
we're talking
40
about the
years.
regular traditional shears,
Mhm.
right? I gotta say, I was taught by somebody who every time I started bending my wrist or putting myself in a weird position, she would stop me. And that's why
Mhm.
I've been grooming since 1991, 92 and have not had carpal tunnel syndrome problems at all.
I
Making
will
sure
say
your
that
shear is
also.
adjusted,
Mhm.
making
Yep.
sure that you're not cutting through something that takes a lot of force. If it
Yes.
takes a lot of
Oh,
force,
yes.
you have the wrong tool. But
Mhm.
really kind of keeping your wrist in whatever it needs to be in.
Still.
Let me see if I can do that.
Yeah.
But keep your wrist wherever it needs to be for the shear
Yeah.
that you have.
You're not doing this. Yeah.
Yep. And if that means you have to kind of dip underneath, now I do have shoulder problems, you know, and that's the thing.
Now,
Like, you know, you balance it out,
Mhm.
but be thinking about like just nice upright kind of movement.
When I make them do that exercise for a
Yeah.
month, it's all with all of this completely still.
yeah.
Good.
And
Yeah.
it is really, oh, here comes my cat. It's really important that people know that it's like learning to play the piano. Okay, let's say that you know nothing about the piano, but all of a sudden they've told you that a year from now you have to play in Carnegie Hall. So you're going to start practicing. But there is this thing called muscle memory, and it is something that makes scissoring feel weird at first for people newly learning to it, because your brain is having to think, okay, a little bit of neurobiology here. There's a prefrontal cortex, which is your higher order thinking. And then you've got your cerebellum in the lower part of your brain that is your muscles. You know, it tells your body, you know, it tells your heart to beat and your lungs to breathe and your kidneys to function and so on. But in order at first to be able to scissor, your brain has to go, the message has to go all the way from your prefrontal cortex all the way down to your cerebellum, telling you each stroke what to do. It's not autonomic until you've done it literally like thousands and thousands of times. So you have to do it thousands and thousands of times. And every time you teach somebody to scissor, you have to tell them those first 4 or 6 months, it's going to feel weird to you. It's going to feel slow because it takes you more time to think about your positioning and think about where your hands are. And, you know, depending on what kind of shear you're using, you really have to think about it. You have to remember that literally you have to do this daily for many hours a day for weeks and weeks and weeks before it's even going to begin to feel quasi normal, because this is the kind of motions and hand positions that most people have never had to use their entire life. So I just had to say that up front.
Yep. And practice, when you think about the reason why you practice it a whole lot is you know, to take your tech talk and lower it. I love tech talk, but I also have to like talk to people who don't understand tech talk. But to think in terms of, you no longer, when you've been driving for a while, you no longer think about your brake pedal or your gas pedal. If you have to switch from an automatic to a standard, suddenly you're thinking about it and you're gonna mess up unless you switch back and forth all the time. But it's not impossible to learn something slightly different.
Well,
It just takes
think of it
repetition.
just going on what you said. Think about, okay, well, I'm probably aging myself. If you drove a standard and then went to an automatic, how many times have you reached for that? That's because that's muscle
Especially with the
memory.
baby shifters that just the automatics that have a shifter.
Exactly.
Ah!
Or if you had your, you know, your stick shift up here and now it's in the console, you automatically go up here. That is what is.
Or your left foot
memory.
slams to the floor looking for that clutch that's not there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, because it's been done so often that it's on autopilot.
Exactly.
Which is why when I went from regular shears to double swivels, it took a while for me to practice those long enough that I'm like, oh, wait a minute, my thumb just tells the rest of my hand what's comfortable.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and it takes a while to get the hang of.
So that's why I want to make sure everybody knows that, you know, if you're a beginner at this, you know, just be patient with your own body while it gets used to doing something. There's this old phrase, 10,000 times to mastery. Before you can do something without thinking about it, and you watch somebody who's, you know, an amazing scissorer, like all of these people in this conversation here, that, you know, they've been doing it so long, they're not even telling their thumb what to do anymore. It just knows what to do and what position they need to be in. And that will come for all groomers, but just be patient with yourself for that first 6 months to a year while you're
So
really doing it
one of the
consciously.
things that
thinking about it.
one of the things that I still do is I will watch videos and watch like Barkley TV and things like that. I'll watch grooming videos and I'm like a little kid with a toy in my hand and I'm like following along, and I will totally just follow along with what they're showing me because that's the way I learn. So even with, years of doing this, and I'm like, oh, okay, how did they get around that edge? And my poor border collies will stand still while I'm like, how did they do that? But even just going through the motions because you're watching somebody else can be super helpful to just get some of that experience in your hand before you go and try it.
And Chris and Mindy, when you teach somebody, like, taking the swivel part out of it, what kinds of things do you find that are helpful to people to, or let's say there's somebody that's even come to you that's been grooming for a while, but they're doing their hand positions entirely incorrectly. What kinds of exercises or training thinking processes do you send people through?
One thing that we tell them is that no matter, whether they're learning, one big thing is, when they're learning is to sit in front of the TV with your favorite show that you have just got to zone out to and completely pay attention to and do it so that you're not consciously thinking about what you're doing. The way you showed them is the way I teach, with bracing your hand with your other hand.
That's right.
So that
Hold it.
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So you're not having to think about it. All you have to do is move your thumb. So you don't really need to consciously think about, okay, up and down, up and down, up and down. You zone out to the TV and just do it, because
Good.
that's going to create muscle memory faster
Yep.
than sitting there consciously thinking about it all the time.
And then I make them, after a week of doing that, then I make them drop the hand and just try to do it holding their hand without doing any of this, without any, just moving the thumb. Yeah.
And to do it along edges of things. Like when you're practicing at home, just go along the edge of the counter, or take your water bottle. Water bottles make great legs. Look at the beautiful column leg on that.
Woo!
And woo, sexy. You didn't get on practicing getting in there. I mean,
Amber, this
you
is
don't
how
have a
you
dog
practice
attached to the
flipping
rest.
your
So let's say you had.
This is how you
Yeah,
practice.
and this is how you practice flipping, because Amber, if you're still there, let me move back so you can see me a little better.
Can you show her flipping
I'm
curves?
scissoring.
Because it was the curves specifically that she was wondering about.
Mhm.
And I know the curves for a lot of people start getting tricky because they're like, how do I round a foot without taking the shear out
Give
of
me
my
a minute.
hand?
Let me go grab my curves.
The other one that I like is I tell them to basically walk a wall. You take your shears and you just go across the wall. That way, number one, you're
like pretend that this is a wall.
Yeah.
And you just practice scissoring along it.
Right,
like
because that teaches you to keep distance, so that you're not dipping in and out as you're scissoring. It teaches you to keep the distance along the body.
Dipping also meaning bouncing, because
Exactly.
so many.
So I make them do it first in contact with the wall, and then lift their hand out from the wall and follow the same without any bounce.
Yeah.
Yep. Right.
Because the one thing with the bounce is you can never get that shear back in the exact same spot you just were, which is where you're getting your chop.
So you want to be able to scissor this way in a straight line without any movement. And you also don't want to rotate your scissor this way by yanking, with your thumbs or your fingers.
Unless you're intentionally
swiveling.
Unless you're intentionally.
One thing I will have them do too is put a comb on a table, and it just hangs out a little bit. Put their shear up against it, and then they have to move this without bouncing the comb.
Cool. I like that.
Okay, so flipping the curves. Now, when we say to just sit and zone out in front of your favorite TV and just move your hand around, just move your fingers around. It sounds crazy because you're like, well, these are weird motions. How am I going to use this in grooming? But you're scissoring with your curves, and all of a sudden you're able to go, hello. Oh, look, I'm dropped down. I flipped my curves and am now using the back.
This is again only if you have those swiveled.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Only if you have double swivel.
But it was answering a question for
Yes.
Amber.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, obviously, the
Yeah.
long-term benefits to having the double swivel is so amazing. Speaking as somebody whose hands are in true agony at this stage in my life after 40 years of grooming, and I got to tell you, I wish I had these. You know, I just bought my first pair of swivels just a few years ago. I wish I'd had them 40 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, going back to edges for a second, if we can, because we didn't touch on something that I really would like to touch on. And we talked about beveled, semi-convex, convex. What we did not talk about is serrated.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I want to talk about serration just for a second. I don't
I think your
believe,
cat wants some wine
Wine and
too,
cats
Chris.
over there.
and
Well, I just got home. He needs a cuddle.
I don't have a pair serrated with me. I forgot to bring them.
I do.
You
might.
do.
Oh, you do?
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
I have a pair of serrated right
So now serration is basically little tiny teeth along the cutting edge.
See if I can
And
find
what that does
Yeah.
is that is going to trap the hair so that it will cut the hair better. Okay.
And it's they're so tiny. I don't know if you can make
I
them
know
out.
it's really
Right.
hard.
It's
to
having
see
trouble
in there.
focusing on it.
Yeah.
It kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of
the
like
picture.
just the
They're very,
But
very
you can
tiny.
hear them.
And
yes,
the
you can
thing
hear
They're
it.
is
very zippy.
that serrated is great, especially for newbies. People just beginning to groom. Okay. But there are some drawbacks to serration. Number one, you need to think about every time that you need to get your shears sharpened, they have to take that serration off and then put that serration back in. So you're losing more metal on each sharpening on a serrated
Mhm.
edge. Okay. And the other thing is that if you have nice sharp shears, that you have a good sharpener that knows what he's doing and they're nice and sharp, the hair's not going to slide off the shear. The shear will actually cut it without the serrations.
Now, Mindy, what our favorite sharpener in the world, Mo, sometimes does is instead of doing a full serration, if someone wants it to be more grippy, he will just do what they call roughing it up, where
Oh,
picture when you file your nails. If you file it to get it in shape and then you smooth it out, it's just not putting that final smooth polish on it. So it's not going to have the metal loss that serration does, but it's going to give it a little more grippiness. And that's something you might want to do. Well, definitely for bevel shears, I would not recommend doing this to your convex edge shears because that kind of defeats the entire purpose of your nice smooth convex edge shears.
Something also in the broad general, instructions about scissoring in general that I want to address is when you actually have a living dog in front of you, and that's probably one thing we can't demonstrate because it's just us talking heads here. But
we're
when
like
you
looking
have
down at
a
the dog.
three-dimensional dog that has legs and has up underneath parts and has easy to reach outer parts and is also in motion, your your ability to react to the living dog is very important. One of the things I have actually taught myself, and I try to teach my staff, especially when you're scissoring around heads and you're working around the mouth, and if they stick out their tongue and lick the scissors, it's, very bad. So one of the things that I have taught, when I'm scissoring, for example, a mouth, is I use my thumb and forefinger as a sort of a sensor. I don't squeeze the muzzle. I just kind of rest my fingers there. And if I can feel any movement inside that mouth, I immediately pull back with my scissors. I've just trained myself to be, to stay away from a moving mouth by touching it lightly enough just to feel movement. You also have to change directions based on if the hair has, you want to go with the lay of the hair. You always want to scissor, let's say the hair is growing straight down. You want to scissor down or scissor straight up. You don't want to scissor cross grain, because cross grain is going to leave it's not going to look good at all. It's going to be very choppy. So, so scissoring up and down with the lay of the hair is another, I think, important thing that we have to talk about. And then when you are dealing with the inside, let's say you're inside the back legs, you can't go up and down inside the upper thigh or, inside the back leg, for example. But there are ways that you can scissor very, sideways. You can scissor cross grain, but very, very differently.
On the inside of the legs, you should always hold your shears at a 45-degree angle to shear down to keep the lines from forming.
Yeah. And just move your shear a lot. Don't move your arm up and down as quickly. Move your shears up and down a lot and try to get as smooth a line as you can.
Well, and that touches on something else. A lot of people want to move their arms and when you're scissoring. When you're scissoring, your arm, should be locked to your side, and you should be moving your body. That is how you keep, that's how you keep that same distance, and you're moving your body instead of just your arms when you're scissoring.
Picture the group of older people doing Tai Chi in the park.
Yes.
Where you're just scissoring and you're just like, ooh.
Yes.
It's so relaxing. It really kind of is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like scissoring. I get in the zone. It's zen.
I do agree. Really, and I think that when you are in that place, when you have finally achieved that level where you don't have to consciously think about every stroke with a scissor, and you've been doing it for a while and you're moving with your whole body in an ergonomic way, it is a thing of beauty. It is. Mm-hmm. Not just on the dog, but in the art of what we do. It's a good feeling. It's worth working for those of you that are newer groomers. It is worth working for. It's worth spending some time practicing these physical positions and building up the muscle memory of the different ways to do it.
And we didn't even touch on things like thinners, blenders, chunkers.
Let's do it.
That's a whole other.
I was gonna say we didn't even touch on
use it, but
chunker.
That can be next week.
You want to? I thought we were doing scissors tonight. Do you want to? What's next week, Dara? Is it okay? Should we talk about it tonight?
I got to reach out to Angie, and I was just looking at that because next for the month of May, we were supposed to be hitting on small animals, but I know she's been working late, and it might not be feasible for her to be able to jump in. And I'm not the bunny expert like she is, and the small mammal expert she is. So I definitely do not want to jump into that without her. So I will
do cats. Her. We can definitely.
Yeah. And I know, again, Angie is the cat guru, so she's so good at all.
Too. Yeah. I bet we all do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope, I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't. I'm allergic.
I don't anymore because I just can't be everything for everybody.
I love
You
cat
know, you
grooming.
reach a point where you're like,
See, and
yeah, don't do them anymore.
I do.
and
I
I
actually
groom
love it.
cats, but I've come to the realization that I am a dog groomer who grooms cats. I am not necessarily a cat groomer, and I want to learn more about it. So
See, I feel
I'm
like I'm the opposite. I am a cat groomer that actually did dogs.
groom
I
dogs.
preferred
We'll get into
cats
this
hands
more
down,
next
but
week, though. It
yeah.
sounds like though.
Okay.
Yeah, so
But-
we'll touch base. But if we have to do another week on that, and
Well-
we can talk about blenders and chunkers next week, I'm fine with that. We can make that happen.
So yeah, I think that I'm glad that you said blender and chunker, because that would be one of the first things I would want people to know, the difference between. So all scissors with teeth are called thinning shears technically, but some of them take a lot of hair and some of them only take a little, like the two that, there you go.
Yeah.
Chris Barry Anthony has the
Yeah.
correct models.
And
I
the
only have
number of
scissors.
teeth can be misleading because if it's a long blade
Yes.
or a short
Yes.
blade.
Yes.
Because there's actually the two of the ones that she held up, Chris, the 26, the 26 tooth.
These-
One's a set. They're
Yep.
both the same amount of teeth. They're both 26 tooth, but one's a 7-inch and one is an 8-inch. So therefore, you know, the 8-incher is, or the 8-incher
is more aggressive.
is more aggressive in a chunker, where the 7-inch is a less aggressive blender.
So a blender would be
The-
more like the tinier teeth, and they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. Some of them have little notches at the top. Some shears now have thin teeth on two sides where they're double thinning. But technically, yes, that smaller teeth, those would be called your blenders, and the wider teeth, cutting more hair, would be called your chunkers, but they're all thinning shears.
They're all thinning shears. And the way I
Yeah.
describe it, and the way I tend to say, okay, which takes more? A German Shepherd and a Yorkie have the exact same amount of teeth, but boy, are they going to leave a different mark in your arm when they take a chunk out of you.
Yeah. Good analogy. Right.
So this got the same amount of teeth, but they're going to leave a different chunk out of your arm.
I like to use chunkers on doodles because as part of the finish work, rather than, if I'm going to deliberately leave a coat wavy and more blendy, more natural, and we have an inordinate attachment in my shop's neighborhood on the North Shore of Chicago, to lots of people like their doodles big, fluffy, long, big lion heads, scruffy. They come in regularly. They like to leave them longer. We do have some shorter cuts, but we have a lot of longer cuts. And so I really like the chunkers to finish, and I like the thinning, the blenders for your smaller detailed finish areas, like around the face.
Yeah.
Anybody
Yeah.
else?
And
have
I'll even use these blenders, the 7-inch 26 teeth, around the face of a drop coat like a Shih Tzu, because it's going to take off more hair than this little teeny, baby bear taking the teeny bitty bites, but it's still going to leave a more natural finish, but it'll be faster.
Yeah, you won't see the lines as much. And I have one groomer that calls them magic erasers, because they're learning to groom, and if they make a scissoring mistake, then they can go back in there with those blenders and hide what they've done. They are really useful.
Well, we are coming up to our hour.
Mhm.
So it's up to you if you want to continue this next week.
I think this is great. I think this is a good, a good lesson in the basics of scissors. And, I think any of the people here would be really great to take a class with. I really like, Jonathan David has a video out with Kenshi on the actual shears. You can actually get the videos and stuff from him. he also teaches a scissor over comb hand method that is, I think everybody should have that class at some point. It's really spectacular what he can do, faster than what you could do with clippers and so on. So there's all sorts of neat, fun classes and techniques that you can take to do.
And
learn how to do
I
this.
do have an everything shears class that you just told me without telling me that I need to have available online.
Exactly, on video.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's what I just heard. That's what I just heard.
Huh.
Anyway.
You just heard
And
that?
what kind of
Where did you
I
hear
just-
that,
might have
Chris?
that?
I've had
I
your
don't know,
in-person
like-
class, Chris
I don't
Anthony,
know, like,
at
Is
the
there a little
All-American,
buzz in
and
your
it's
ear,
good.
Chris?
It's
thank you. Well, you know what?
It's
The
a
whole
good class.
Pet Academy might have that. Positive Ed might have that. I might have to just get that all over the internet.
Yeah, because that was a really good class that I went as your Everything Shears class at the All-American. That was great.
I need 1 minute. I did want to talk about the tension adjusters
Oh, yeah.
because I was driving when
Oh, yes,
you
you
guys
were.
were talking about this. While Evolution Shears has the knob and I like being able to easily adjust it, I am also a fan of the one you need the little tool for because it's harder to, trying so hard to be professional, muck it up with the
Put
tool.
them out of alignment?
Yes, it's harder because with the tool, you almost have to do it a little bit at a time. And I've seen people go to adjust their tension with the dial, and instead of doing one click at a time, they just go.
Oh, and
And it makes it does bad things for my health.
I'm so glad you said that. I thought of one more
Yeah.
thing, Dara, that I want to get in about the difference between straights and curves.
Okay.
Pam Lauritsen did this demonstration for me, and it was so helpful. Like, here's a pair of curved shears. These are not very curved. These are my curved evolutions. But let me just show you the principle behind a curved shear as versus a straight. And this is just a cheap pair of straight office scissors. But if I want to cut the corner of this piece of paper round, I have to cut. I'm going. I'm cutting all the way around to get it to curve, right? Okay. I have to cut like a lot to get it to curve because it's a straight scissor. But if I have a curved shear, one stroke cuts that corner round. So that's the reason why we have curved shears, so that when you have a curved surface, you do fewer cuts.
Now, just to, I'm not going to argue with you or Pam, but just to confuse you, I have had an old school. I did have an old school breeder who almost exclusively used straights say that the only problem with that is when you have curves. My cat just did something horrible, so I got a lot of candle. Woo! When you have curves, you're locked into the angle that's in that curve.
Absolutely.
Which is
That's
why the evolution
some of them
shears
have just a bare curve and some of them have a
Real extreme.
Which is why these don't have an extreme curve, because with the swivel you can control that angle a little bit more.
1 second.
Mindy's going for her
use
extremes.
your straights. Yep.
I've got to tell you, the new super curves that have been out for the last couple of years, I've tried them and they make my brain hurt. So I just can't use them because they're too curved.
You know what? They're good if that's the exact angle you want to put.
Well, yeah, if I'm doing a small dog with a rounded top knot, like a little cabochon or something.
But honestly, if you're doing a little Asian fusion face, just these tiny curves, because of the double swivel, you can get anywhere in there.
Yeah.
But once you know how to put in a curve with straights, yes, it is harder for your average
more cut
top knot. You're not going to want to do it for your average foot. You're not going to want to do it. But for that dog that has the angle, like some of my Black Russian Terriers, I'm trying to do the angulation on the chest, and I can't use even my 8-inch. It doesn't have the right curve. It
Yeah.
doesn't have the right angle. So it's
that's why
important
I
to
have
know
like
how
I
to do it.
literally have a dozen pair of curved shears, and all of them are different
Yeah,
lengths and different curves.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
For different size of dogs.
So the one more important thing is that what we're all kind of saying is that shears are very, very personal, like your underwear. Okay. And
Whatever
you
fits.
need to
Need a
be
good
able
fit.
to
Needs to be
get-
breathable.
yeah,
I'm going
it
to
needs
get you a
be-
T-shirt, Mindy, that says "My shears are like my underwear."
Well, they are, because they're very personal to you. And you know what?
And
When
your hand needs to feel supported, just
you
like
don't
your
want anybody else wearing
buttocks.
them.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
I
you
don't
go.
let people borrow my shears either. Yeah,
You
not my
you
good ones.
when you get, that's why, if you can go to an expo,
Mm,
that is the best place to buy your shears.
hands
Get
on.
your
Yep.
hands into every single pair of shears there.
But
Yep.
know the
Yeah.
trick that they use. They all loosen them up to make it feel like, oh my gosh, these just feel great.
Yes.
Make sure you do
You
that
know,
little drop test,
Yep.
to make sure that they're at the right tension. Okay. Yeah.
Oh my God, we spend so much time behind the booth every morning rechecking the tension of all the demo shears at Evolution, because by the end of the day, 12 people have played with them, so it's going to be different. So
12.
we
More
we
I was going
realize
to say more than
20,
12.
depending
more
on
like
which show you're at.
1,200.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on which show.
I mean, how do you talk
lot
about
of
scissoring
people.
for 1 hour? This is tricky, huh? Because
Yeah.
now I'm like, we didn't
Right?
even talk about curved shears that are regular shears, that how you flip them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
and
why
you
I
can
said
use
we're going to go on with this next week. So
Okay.
we have plenty
All
of
right.
time.
Okay.
We can wrap this and make your notes for next week. We'll start where we're ending, right here. We can
Okay.
pick up
Okay.
with the curved shears.
Like where you can use on different shears on different
Yep.
parts of the body to achieve
Yep.
certain effects.
Yep.
Very good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Tune in next
And-
week. Send all your friends.
Yeah. Send all your friends. Hey,
Send
and
wine.
look, I got our names up.
Same bat
I
time.
see
Same
that.
bat channel.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yep. We got
Yeah,
the names up.
and I gotta say, Dara, just kudos to you for gathering a really impressive. I mean, Chris, Anthony, Mindy, you guys are famous in scissoring, and so it's it's really cool to be able to have you there. It's true.
I
thank
kind
you.
of know them a
A
little
master class.
personally.
It's a master class. It is.
Yeah.
It's a master class.
I'm happy to say that.
Yeah, she called in the friend card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mindy
Although
taught me a lot about scissoring.
Oh,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And
Thank
and
you.
and I'm sure you meant it that all of us are available for, especially these two, for for individual coaching if you want. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dara. More next week.
Yes, this is good. So more to come next week. We'll figure it out, but we're
Yes.
going to go with this for the first week of May. That's oh no, it's not the wait, what is the first week of May.
no, not yet.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Summer's coming.
It'll
So
be
it's the following week.
Monday, May 2nd is not a.
Yeah, Monday, May 2nd, and then the following week is I'm going to have a hard time making the following week because we'll be traveling back.
And who said same bat time, same bat channel?
That would
Same
be.
bat
No,
time.
you
Yeah,
said
I
that.
understand that.
I don't
reference
say that.
too. I get it. I'm
I see.
64 years old. I get it.
Yeah,
Batman. Yeah.
I'm like,
It was an age test.
I love that. Yeah, same bat time. Yeah.
All right, closing credits, ladies. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for sticking with us.
Thank you. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.
Bye.